I'm going to do it all over. I hereby call the BZA for March 28th to order. And it's nice to see everybody. Shall we do the roll call?
I think we shall. Jacobs.
Here.
Salmonson.
Present.
Osterholm.
Here.
Also present is Planning and Zoning Administrator Denise Swinger. And we are still expecting Matt Reed.
Yeah. And Matt will join us when he arrives. That'll be great.
Outstanding.
Okay, we have enough people to do some business anyways, right?
We do.
Perfect. All right, so take a look at the agenda and let me know if it is acceptable. Any changes to the agenda? No? Okay. All right, so this is our agenda for tonight. We've had a few communications from folks, and they are listed on the agenda from Susan and Dan Halm. I hope I'm not mispronouncing that. Doris Hubschman, probably mispronouncing that. Hey, how you doing, Matt? Char Schiff.
No, Hubschman, that's right.
Marie Verendani, Karen Denman, Catherine Weir, and Kathy English. And they're all listed as objecting to the 133 Corry Street application. So we will get to that in due time, but first let's take a look at the minutes from our last meeting, October 26th. And I wasn't at that meeting, I don't believe, so I don't think I'm the guy to comment on them. But let me find out if the people that were there have edits, changes, additions to those minutes.
Yeah, I have done.
Okay.
Make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Okay,
I'll
guys.
second that.
All righty, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Abstain since I wasn't there. All right. And then we're on to the public hearings. And thank you all for being here. Nice to see everybody. The way we do this is we hear from our really capable staff who gives us a report. She describes, what is before all of us here, and then we have the public hearing part of it then we hear from the applicant, whoever's application this is, and then we have the public hearing part of it, and then there's a discussion amongst us, and then we take a vote. And we have this whole little rigmarole that we have to go through when we take a vote, so you'll catch on after the first one, okay? If you have any questions, we, of course, want to answer them as we go. All right, so the first variance request has to do with the Central Business District, and this is from Mr. Ayrsman asking to have a sign that's larger than the code provides for.
Yes.
Denise?
Our zoning code allows for 5% of a wall area to which it's attached, not exceeding 25 square feet total for wall signs. In this particular case, the front wall is very small compared to what most of the front wall of the buildings are downtown. And there was a sign previously there that still has the holes in the wall from where they had placed that sign, and he would like to be able to use the existing holes that are there to attach the sign because he doesn't want to degrade the walls any more than have it been done in the past. So it's fairly straightforward. It's just simply asking for a sign that allows them to do 2 by 8, I believe it is. Yeah, 2 by 8 or 16 square feet. So even though you technically can get up to 25 square feet, this is just such a small front-facing building. So he's asking for a 16 square foot size.
Okay, and if you went by the percentage alone, it would be 11.15. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's the variance.
That's the variance.
Let's see if we have any questions for our staff person, and then we'll hear from the applicant. Questions for Denise? No?
Is this the T-shirt shop? Or did it?
It was the T-shirt
Oh.
shop, yes. It's not.
I haven't been downtown. What? Oh.
255 Xenia Avenue, and the name of the business is Tweedledees.
Oh,
It's now
okay.
Tweedledees.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
sorry
maybe
about
we
that.
ought to hear from the applicant. Is that you? Just come on up, give us your address and your name, and
Sure. Hello? Shane Ayrsman, 255 Xenia Avenue, Tweedledees. Looking to take the old Hasser facade and not degrade it anymore with puncture wounds, essentially. So we want to be able to use the existing hardware, and it looked at one time something was on the 2x8 standard ripped sheet of plywood approach. So we'd like to go back to that, essentially. Yeah.
questions for Mr. Ayrsman?
No, sir.
No? Okay. All right, have a seat. And now we'll open the public hearing. This is the part I always forget, so when Judy smiles, I know I'm doing something right. This is good. Okay, we will open the public hearing. Anybody here to comment on this particular variance request? Okay, nobody's appeared to do that, so we'll close the public hearing. And so this is where Judy will lead us through. We have these criteria that we have to evaluate in making our decisions, and she walks us through them. And our final decision, it's not like you're adding up a matrix and the number tells you what the final decision is. It's just ultimately how you choose, how each of us choose to weigh these various criteria determines how we vote at the very end. And then, of course, the majority vote is what will determine the outcome of any one of these variances. So go ahead, Judy.
All right, the first, and the way that I'll do this is I'll give a pause. If no one jumps right in with a question or clarification, I'll just roll right down and call the roll. The first question is whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return or whether there can be beneficial use of the property without the variance. Salmonson.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Osterholm.
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Question 2, whether the variance is substantial. Reed.
Nope.
Salmonson.
No.
Osterholm.
No.
Jacobs.
No.
3, whether the essential character of the neighborhood would be substantively altered, or whether adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. Osterholm.
No.
Jacobs.
No.
Salmonson.
No.
Reed.
No.
4, whether the variance would adversely affect the delivery of governmental services such as water distribution, sanitary sewer collection, electric distribution, stormwater collection, or refuse collection. Jacobs.
No.
Osterholm.
No.
Reed.
Nope.
Salmonson.
No.
5, whether the property owner purchased the property with knowledge of the zoning restriction. Osterholm.
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Salmonson.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
6, whether the property owner's predicament feasibly can be obviated through some method other than a variance. Jacobs.
Yes.
Osterholm.
Yes.
Salmonson.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
7, whether the existing conditions from which a variance is being sought were self-created. Jacobs.
No. This one is
Osterholm.
philosophical.
No.
Reed.
Yes.
Salmonson.
Yes.
8, whether the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance. Reed.
Yes.
Salmonson.
Yes.
Osterholm.
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes. Okay, and so then after weighing these factors, we have to determine whether the property owner has shown practical difficulties so inequitable as to justify the granting of the variance to the property owner. And is there a motion to grant this variance?
I'll make the motion to grant the variance as written, as requested.
I'll second it.
All righty. And then, any further discussion among board members? Any further discussion among board members?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay. Call the
right.
roll?
Osterholm.
Yes.
Salmonson.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Thank you.
You did all right on that one. Okay.
That's it.
That's it.
All right. Thanks for coming. Nice to see you.
You get a good package, too, I thought.
You do.
Yeah. All right, so now we're on to the second variance request, and this relates to 405 Corry Street, and it's on behalf of the Glen Helen Association. It has to do with the parking lot, and over to you, Denise.
Right, and so parking lots typically are handled administratively, but in this particular case, they had some requests to not conform to the code because they wanted to do a managed natural landscape around the perimeter of the parking area. So they needed to go to Planning Commission for a Level A review, and Planning Commission did approve it. What Planning Commission cannot approve is a dimensional type of variance, and that is why we're here tonight. They would like to not put in the tree islands. They would be required to have 8 trees in 2 or 3 islands inside in this parking lot. So that is their request, and Dirk is here tonight representing the Glen Helen Association.
Okay, great, thanks. Just hang on just a second. Let's see, any questions for Denise?
Denise, just to clarify, this is not, location is not at 405 Corry
It
Street.
is
This
not.
is off 343,
I'm sorry, you're correct. It's not.
Okay.
That's their street
Correct.
address. I'm sorry. Their location is off of 343, the entrance that you take to go to the Outdoor Education Center.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Denise? Okay, so who's here on behalf of the Glen? Come on up, do you mind? And, give us your name, your address, and,
Yeah, I'm Dirk Van Gorp, Dirk Lackovich-van Gorp, 215 Whitehall, village resident. I'm a member of the property committee, Glen Helen, so strictly a volunteer, not staff. And I'm also the volunteer project manager for 2 or 3 capital improvement projects that the Glen has, most of you know, through grant and other private funding that the Glen has raised. The first of those projects is the new parking lot. There is not one existing off of 343, entrance to the Outdoor Education Center, Raptor Center, be on your left-hand side. It is actually located as much as possible the footprint under the power line right-of-way. And you say, I didn't know there was a power line right-of-way. There is, about 50 feet off of that drive going in. It actually belongs to AES or whatever Dayton Power Light corporate name is these days. I lose track. They change hands so often. Probably depends on who got arrested lately. I didn't say that. I'm sorry. But at any rate, we're situating the parking lot to the maximum extent with the permission of AES under the power line right-of-way, obviously to not have to cut down any more trees than necessary. And as Denise said, it's a managed natural landscape. We're preserving all of the canopy trees. Glen Helen, essentially the forest is going to come up to the edge of the parking lot. It's basically going to be a little dot in the middle of a forest. And requesting not to have to do the tree islands seems not quite in keeping since we're preserving the entire natural landscape already, and also it would be more difficult, obviously, for the maintenance crews to plow and things like that in the wintertime. The other concern I had, because I've been in construction all my life, is that any tree island could technically get in the way of an AES line truck if they ever had to. They said, yeah, we have no problem with the parking lot being there as long as we can put a truck on it if we ever had to repair a line overhead. So that basically is the rationale and the request from Glen Helen.
Gotcha. Thank you. Any questions for Dirk?
I see you have flush toilet restrooms as part of this. Is that
We
part
do.
of the same project, or is it?
It's part of the same project,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, and that's part of the planning
Yeah,
review.
which will be, he'll be contacting the Public Works Director to work
Yeah.
out those
Okay.
details for utilities.
There'll be professional,
There's not
Plans.
sewer there, is there? There's not sewer there,
there's
is there?
sewer, water, and data there, as a matter of fact.
There you go.
That's why we decided that it would be conducive for people that come to the Glen to have
Sure.
Great.
And there's also, it's envisioned that that would be the starting point of an ADA trail that goes down into the glen, because that's the shallowest slope down into the glen for an ADA trail sighting. Okay?
And just for my own knowledge, is there anything already existing on this footprint where you're going to put it? Is there informal
Nothing.
parking there or anything, or not yet? Okay.
Just power line right of way. That's all that's there right now.
Okay. Other questions? All right. Have a seat, and this would be the part where we open the public hearing. Anybody here want to comment on this proposal? Okay. All right, then we will close the public hearing. And let's see, is there any discussion among board members?
I have nothing.
On the, Scott?
No, it's pretty clear cut to me.
All righty. In that case, Judy,
Here we
have
go.
at it.
All right. First question, whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return or whether there can be any beneficial use of the property without the variance. Jacobs.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Osterholm.
Yes.
Salmonson.
Yes.
Whether the variance is substantial. Osterholm.
No.
Salmonson.
No.
Reed.
Nope.
Jacobs.
No.
3, whether the essential character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered or whether adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. Reed.
No.
Osterholm.
No.
Salmonson.
Yes.
Jacobs. No. 4, whether the variance would adversely affect delivery of any governmental services. I won't roll through them, given its location. Reed.
No.
Osterholm.
No.
Salmonson.
No.
Jacobs.
No.
5, whether the property owner purchased the property with knowledge of the zoning restriction. Think hard on that one. Let's not jump in too quick. Okay, Reed.
I'll say no.
Okay, Osterholm.
Go no.
Salmonson.
Reading it again, you got me thinking. I'll say yes.
Okay, Jacobs.
Yes.
6, whether the property owner's predicament feasibly can be obviated through some method other than a variance. Jacobs.
Yes.
Reed.
No.
Osterholm.
Yes.
Salmonson.
Yes.
7, whether the existing conditions from which a variance is being sought were self-created. Salmonson.
Yes.
Osterholm.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Okay. And 8, whether the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance. Reed.
Yes.
Salmonson.
Yes.
Osterholm.
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so after weighing those factors, we have to decide whether the property owner has shown practical difficulty so inequitable as to justify granting the variance to the property owner. Is there a motion to grant this variance?
I'll make such motion.
Second?
I'll second.
All righty. Any further discussion? No? Okay. Judy?
All right. Salmonson.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Osterholm.
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes.
Thank you.
All righty. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. I work during the daytime with Clark County Planning and Zoning in the field, so congratulations.
You caught us on a good day.
Neighbor is a senior planner.
Like you, we're all volunteers. Judy, can I give this to you on Thursday?
Yes, sir. Oh, well,
Okay. The signatures for, because I'm leaving now. I've got to recuse myself.
yeah, not a problem.
you're out of here.
I can catch you anytime. Yeah, for sure.
Due to my proximity to the applicant,
Gotcha.
I'm
Okay.
stepping out.
Okay.
All right.
The short, you only here 16 minutes.
Was it 16 minutes? It
Yeah,
felt like,
I-
it only felt like 15.
16 minutes.
Okay.
Well, this one's not good.
All right. Okay. So now we're on to the final variance of the evening. This is the final one, right?
This is the final one.
Okay. And this is the variance regarding the transient guest lodging at 1333 Corry Street. And take it away, Denise.
Okay, the property is in a trust, Mary Sims Trust, and tonight we'll have Bruno Ketcheloff is going to be representing. Valerie, his daughter, submitted the application. I mentioned in my report she was not going to be here tonight, and her father is representing. He is a part of the trust. And so what they are asking for is a variance to the 500-foot requirement, because there is a transit guest lodging. If you look up on the screen, the property is at 1333, that's the red dot. At the time that I submitted this application, I had, when I talked with Valerie in the office, she'd asked if there was a possibility of a variance. I said yes, but this would be a substantial variance. So it might behoove you to, it's not in the code, but you could ask neighbors to see if they're supportive, and maybe have a petition that people could sign. She did turn in a petition. She only got 3 signatures at that time. She had the 3 blue dots in relationship to where her house is. I did mention in my report that I had 1 phone call from the person to the south of that. The caregiver for the resident had called saying she had objected to it. I since talked to them this morning again, and they sent an email. And we have had a number of emails submitted.
Yeah, I've got
Judy, you're going to have to do that. So what I can say is that both abutting property owners to the north and south of 1333 have objected, and the person directly across the street, the Halms, have objected. And then down at the corner of Birch and Corry, opposite the blue dot at 1315 Corry, Doris Hubschman has also objected. And there are some more that have come in, but they're not in this map. They're either further
Farther
down
away.
Corry, or even one out on Hyde Road.
They were against it. Okay.
And so and are they all accounted for in this list of communications that we have on the agenda, Judy?
They are.
Okay. And are they all going to be included in the record of this hearing?
They will be.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Denise, more?
So, yeah, so it really, as far as the transit guest lodging, as I mentioned in my report, that, there was a reason why the village started this, was to help people be able to stay in their homes. At the same time, we also didn't want to have the neighborhoods be overrun by TGLs. So as you know, we have a moratorium now on non-operator occupied TGLs, so that slowed down, that has effectively stopped investment companies coming in and snapping up the smaller homes and just using them for straight Airbnbs. So what we're focusing on now are those Airbnbs that, or transit guest lodgings, where people actually, property owners live there, and they rent those rooms out either when they go away, or they might rent a room out or a basement while they are there. And that's the situation here.
Alrighty.
This is
And
a case also, let me just say, I didn't have a staff recommendation. This is one of those things that I think the Duncan factors are going to make your decision clear.
all right, and you indicated that how close is the,
It's 3,
oh, really? I'm sorry. Let me talk to this.
Ellis, that actually doesn't do anything for the in-the-room sound, so
Oh.
you just have to,
Just speak up. Okay, I will. My apologies.
so
Yeah.
I have that in my report as, it's like,
You gave us the number of feet for
Yes,
the variance, I
yes.
believe.
It's 500.
yes, I did.
No, the variance is like
So it's
300
Yeah, we're not even near-
378,
we're not
so
even
we
near
can
that.
do the math, I
We're not
guess,
even
right?
close.
122.
122 feet.
It's
So-
122 feet away, yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
from the other TGL.
All right, questions for Denise?
And Mr. Keshloff is here tonight.
I understand. Let's just see first.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Okeshlov? Yeah, you want to stand up, give us your name and your address, and thank you for being here tonight.
Bruno Koshlev. I'm Valerie
Sorry
Koshlev
about that.
daughter. I live at 63 Emerald Street in Keene, New Hampshire.
Whoa.
I'm the trustee for the property.
Gotcha.
I'm the former husband of Mary Sims.
Gotcha.
Is this working? Somewhat.
It's only for the recording of
Oh,
it.
okay, fine.
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Thanks. All right. I'm here actually. I would ask you to read Valerie's petition very carefully because it really encompasses the entire situation. But I'm here to clarify certain things. But before I do, if I may, I would like to direct my comments to 4 of the objectors. I have the copies of their objections, and I'd like to retort some of the statements that are made in them.
You know, you can do it now, or you could, maybe that some of them are here tonight and want to speak, and,
Yes.
and we would allow you to do it after, but it's your call, whatever you prefer.
Well, I'd like to start that. And
Sure.
if I may, afterwards, I'll summarize without repeating what Valerie has proposed to you.
Okay.
And then maybe elucidate in a certain matter, which is more sensitive, but it directly addresses your point number 7 in the in your criteria, one which is whether the situation warranting or asking for the variance is justified and whether it was self-created or not. It's a very sensitive topic, but it's very germane to the situation. So with your indulgence, if I may, I would like to. So let me start at the beginning. I'm only aware, I've just been made aware that there have been more objections, but I'm aware of Mrs. Schiff's. We've tried several times to contact her to find out exactly what the objection was, because originally it was just a phone call saying we object and no comments. We've contacted the caregiver several times, and she promised to get back to us, but she never did. So I really have no basis on which to know what her objection is. So I would ask you to consider the fact that what is the objection on which we can make a ruling. I set that one aside. That was easy. The one I got, the second one I would like to address is Dorothy Hubschman's. She states that she's concerned of a commercial establishment. Well, this is not a commercial establishment. It's a private home. We're not going to run a hotel. She mentions that the B&B do not enhance the housing market. Well, that's a kind of a throwaway statement. It's not, she provides no evidence to claim that. But anyway, it's not a matter for this board. It's really a matter for the Village Council to consider what the housing market is for Yellow Springs. She says that long-term renters are presumably are preferable because they are likely to have children in school and would pay both school taxes and village taxes. Well, I think she's quite confused about taxation, in fact, if I may say so. There's no link between long-term renters and likelihood of paying state, school, or village taxes. There's no link whatsoever. It depends on the personal condition of the taxpayer, whether they file or not. Most people are not even aware that more than half of American households don't pay any income tax at all. They don't pay any federal income tax, and most state taxes are based on federal income tax laws, with some variations, and then, of course, school taxes derive from that. So she is really quite confused. Her argument is not very substantial. And lastly, she suggests that B&Bs don't pay village taxes. Well, B&B, she's talking about what we're asking for a variance, but that's patently incorrect because they're paid directly into the village coffers. So I would suggest that her objections are not validated by her comments, by her observations. I'd like to continue with the Halm's letter. The Halms are here, I would like to say. We've been very good neighbors. We enjoy the Halms tremendously. They're open people. We have good relations with them. We feel very open to talk about just about anything, always on a good neighborly basis. But I was a little bit surprised by her objection. Sorry. The main points that she mentions is Yellow Springs shortage of housing, but this is not really the issue at hand here. She has a preference that we would rent. Well, Mary Sims rented for 20 years to 6 different parties. There were no objections. There were no problems. We've never had any difficulties with any of them, and we even rented to 2 younger sets of people They did not trash the place. They didn't have wild parties. There were no loud music in the afternoons. They had some beer and wine lawn parties, but they were subdued. We made sure of that. We're very concerned about the propriety of whatever goes on in our property. No question about that. The other concerns that she mentions is noise, but I've just alluded to that. We've never, in the entire time we've been there, had any complaints from anybody, including from the Halms, about noise. We're very concerned about that at all times. We don't want to encumber the neighborhood with noisy, exuberant people. We're respectful. So I would say that that really is not a consideration. If this variance is granted, we wouldn't allow people occupying the downstairs apartment to behave in any way like that. Another concern that she has is parking. Okay, I would like to point out that Corry Street actually allows parking on both sides of the street, and on both sides of the street with parking of vehicles, it allows enough clearance for vehicles going on in both directions. Parking is not an issue. It is perfectly legal and admissible under town codes. And I would like to also add, there are very few people on Corry Street who actually park on the street. Tradesmen do park on the street when they're working. That's a daytime thing. It's perfectly normal. We don't have any problems with that. But even if they were to park for extended periods of time, what is the issue? Parking has not been an issue. If the police were to be asked, they come by there regularly. They find almost no one parked there after 5 o'clock. And if on the whole side of the street where we live, you find 3 vehicles parked in the street during the daytime, I would be surprised. It just doesn't happen. Every house on that street, on Corry Street, except for at the very end of the street that is contiguous with the old firehouse, every house has a driveway that can take up to 3 vehicles. Parking's not an issue. The Halms mention, quote, uncertainties voiced also by other neighbors. Well, the Halms can't speak for other neighbors. This is an open forum. Everybody is invited to make their comments. If people don't make their comments directly, you shouldn't be considering comments from a third party. In a court of law, that's hearsay, and it's not admitted. So I don't know what the other neighbors' concerns are unless they've been transmitted to this board. And I have not been appraised of 3 of the last people who did voice objection. So I will just ask you to consider the comments that I make at this point. Mrs. Halms, or Mr. Halms, finally end their letter by reiterating their concern for permanent housing in Yellow Springs. They would prefer that we rent long-term. But again, this is not really a consideration for the Halms. It's not a consideration for this board. It's a consideration for the village council and all. That's all I have on the Halms. And now I come to Mrs. Variani. I'm a little bit more concerned about her letter to you. She objects strongly to Airbnb, basically, that she has on both sides of her house. I accept that. She's concerned about it. Yes, but are the concerns substantial to suggest that this variance request should be denied? And I say no. As far as I know, that there's no history at all of difficulties with the existing Airbnb next to her, either in parking, as far as I know, and noise, or in any other way. We would certainly not change the nature of the neighborhood, even though we would be on the other side of Mrs. Variani. That she had 2 Airbnbs, I doubt would have any effect at all. As I understand, the one that is next to her, the existing one, is not even taking people right now, and she's never had very large numbers of people visiting there anyway. We don't have any expectation of having a lot of people. Absolutely not. Quite the opposite. It's certainly not running a hotel situation. Now, I say hotel situation because Mrs. Variani specifically mentions, she alludes to the area becoming a hotel zone. This is not at all what we're trying to do. We're not suggesting a hotel. We don't have clerks. We don't have people coming in day and night checking in. We wouldn't be doing that. It'd be a very low-key thing. She does present 2 reasons, and I'll go into each one of them. One is privacy. And we're very sensitive to that. We're very private people, quite frankly. We're open and friendly, but we're very private people. We want our privacy. She mentions that her living room, her dining room, and her bedroom face the Koshlev, well, the Sims, I'm sorry, property. And I have to tell you that that's misleading, and I will read from her letter specifically the wording that she uses. While it's correct, the wording is correct, the meaning, the intent, I think, is to obfuscate. She says, the large pond on her property directly faces my living room, dining room, and bedroom windows. She's concerned that people might look into her room. Well, that is correct, except for the fact that she's left out a major element here. If you look at the map, there is another thing that absolutely separates her bedroom, her living room, and her dining room from our house. And that's a huge expanse of trees, of brush, of woods, of cuttings, and what have you. And in fact, if you stand on our house, and I invite the council to do that if they would like to, you can substantiate that it's extremely difficult to see her house. You can only get a vague outline of the house. You can see a little bit of the roof, but there is no way that you can even see the doors or the windows that she says abut directly against our house. So this is quite a misleading statement. There's absolutely no lack of privacy on her part from anybody on our side of the house.
If I may make
Yes, go ahead, please.
This is getting very deep into the weeds, which is really the job of the board.
Right.
To ask questions of
Sure.
folks who've written letters and
Right.
receive those responses. So let's give you another 1 to 2 minutes. Let's wrap it up and try to focus on
There's
what
no
you
substance
would,
to
in
it.
fact, like to accomplish rather than rebutting neighbor concerns.
Very good. She also has a comment about her parking. It's the same opinion. There is no problem in the parking there. I would terminate by saying, please read Valerie's petition. It's complete. Now, there is an issue about the item 8 that you have to be satisfied with. The reason for this, it's sensitive since I've been asked not to address it. Mary Sims is here. You might allow her to address the situation, whether she brought this situation, this dire financial situation on herself, and what the basic reasons behind that are. I would say that Valerie is a very responsive person. We're not going to change the tone or the nature or the character of the neighborhood in one iota. For 20 years, Mary Sims has rented to people. We haven't changed the nature of the neighborhood. Thank you very much. If you have any questions.
Could I say just a few comments? Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Kashlev.
Yeah. Valerie has some medical issues that don't allow her to work 8 hours a day. She would like to do this renting as a combination between renting it every day of the year, as we have done for years, with no complaints that I've heard from neighbors. But Valerie would do it only part-time. It's a basement apartment. She's fixed it up very nicely. She wants to be able to use it herself. Sometimes she's proposing to only connect with the Airbnb global facility when there are going to be big events in Yellow Springs, whether people might come for the Yellow Springs Community Orchestra, the things, or whether it's to see a Dave Chappelle event, or whether it's to come for the street fairs. It would only be rented part of the time. Either Valerie or I would be in the house to supervise people. The driveway, as Bruno has said, easily can hold 3 cars plus one in the garage. And Valerie said, and I don't know where she got it, maybe from Denise, she said, in Yellow Springs, south of Antioch College, there are currently only 2 Airbnbs permitted by you guys. And one of them happens to be just 1 house away from ours. But it is around the corner So people would not be seeing cars coming and going from both of these places all at the same time. So, as I'm saying, it's a part-time Airbnb facility, and it's because Valerie doesn't really have any other way to earn money at this point.
And can you identify
Thank you
yourself?
very much.
I'm sorry, I'm Mary Sims, and I am Valerie's mother, and I am the owner of the house,
Thank you.
the land.
Thanks, Mary. Denise, let me just ask you a question. My understanding is that you can rent, or you can have people stay in your house a certain number of nights, a year, or a month, or whatever it may be, without becoming a transient guest facility. It's only if you go over, there's a certain,
5 nights,
you can have.
5 nights.
In what time
year.
period? In a year, okay,
Yeah.
all right. Okay, so that may or may not be
But if
helpful.
we rented for
Yeah.
30 days at a time,
If you do, yeah, you could rent, right now, you can rent 30 days at a time, month to month, and you don't fall under any of this. You're not going to be hit with a TGL tax or a registration.
and that's
Yeah.
what we're doing. Everyone else was on a long-term lease. People like Chris Walter, the guy on WYSO that does the environmental stuff, he only stayed 4 months, but most of the people have stayed a year at a time.
Thank you. If there are questions for the applicant or for Denise, let's do that, but then we got to get to the public hearing part. Go ahead.
So I think you answered it when you explained the difference between Airbnb and renting. That was my question.
Yeah, 30
I did very well.
days is the
The cutoff.
threshold.
Oh,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, let's open the public hearing part of this. Anybody want to speak? Come on up. Give us your name, and let Mary find her phone.
Ellis, are we holding this to 3 minutes?
Well, unless somebody wants to go 4.
I'm willing to
5 is off the table.
I'm willing to give a little bit of leeway on this because it seems like there's a lot of passion involved. I mean, not like 10 minutes, but,
Right.
I'm willing to be a little bit leeway on it.
3 minute mark, just so folks know. Okay.
All right.
All right, introduce yourself.
My name is Susan Halm. I live at 1350 Corry Street, directly across the street from Mary, who's been my friend for many years. We've lived there 26 years. Mary moved in after we did, and she's a dear friend. And as she said, in the past, she has rented to different people in this property, and I've never had a big problem. The only problem was usually parking, because they'd park right by our driveway, and all I had to do with a renter, a long-term situation, was say, could you just ask them to scoot up a little bit when they park? And it worked, and it was no problem. So that was what I meant when I said, I approve of renting, no problem. But Airbnb brings a different atmosphere, a different, you can't make contact. It's very changeable. The village took a lot of time and effort. I read it in the paper week after week after week, to put together this ordinance. And they did it in a way that was very, I thought, thoughtful, and to keep things to the point where this situation is to me, it's not within the ordinance. And the idea of renting, I agree, is much better, because you're taking away a possible housing situation when you go to Airbnb from renting. So that we don't have any concern with renting the property, but we do with Airbnb. So, thanks.
Thank you very much. Any people from the BZA, any of commission members have any questions for Susan? No. Okay. Anybody else want to speak?
Hello, I'm Mrs. Verandani. That's how you pronounce it, 4 syllables. That's not hard. You can say 4 syllables.
And give us your address.
1325 Corry Street.
Okay.
I'm on the other pond, on the other side of the pond. You are very incorrect. My house is angled.
If you do, then we address
Hey, whoa. Yeah, please address us.
I can see you.
Don't do that. Just address us, okay?
Okay. I
Thank
can
you.
see their house and I can, just parts of it, because there's trees there, but the major part of their yard, I can see the pond, see the bike path all the way up, I can see the horses, and that's because of the angulation, and he's wrong. I can stand, anybody walking in that
Keep
pond
looking up here.
will be able to look right into my windows, and I've seen people do that on the bike path. As a matter of fact, they stop and take a picture. Many people have taken pictures of my yard, but they're farther out. The pond is real close, you see, if you go around it. And I've had intruders, and so I've actually gone out there and said, you know, what are you doing there? And they want to walk across my stream or my bridge, which I don't want them to do. So, and if they're going to rent to, if they rent to the same person, that's okay. In the past, I knew that they rented their basement, and it was just a singular person. And I knew they had little things out in the evening. Fine, that didn't bother me either. So, but I don't like non-privacy like that, because strangers who just come and go will be coming into these, I'm assuming will be coming into to rent her house. So I have a question quick here. Why is what you mentioned, a trust, what is the significance of that, for a house being in trust for this issue? Does it have some...
Because the applicant isn't here, I wanted to let people know that the person who was representing the applicant was a part of the property ownership.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because my house is also in a trust, but I just wondered, what significance is a trust? Doesn't matter now. I understand. So that was my next question. Why is the actual person who submitted this not here to speak for herself? I'd like to meet her. I've never met her.
May I answer?
No, not right now. I don't think that's really relevant. Okay, so any other comments?
Well, I think he refuted a lot of stuff, and the parking is a problem. I don't want somebody parking. I've had this before with the people next door who had the other Airbnb. They've parked, well, it's better now because they cleared it up about 5 or 6 years ago with Kim. And now the parking was in front of my mailbox, which, you know, in the daytime I didn't like that. And when I called over, they said, sorry, can't help you now. So that's my problem with parking, somebody parking in my house, in front of my house overnight. You know, so if they say that won't happen, otherwise I'll have to go out or find out who it is and ask them to move their car closer to Mary's house. I know I don't own the street, but why if they park in front of my house if they're going somewhere else on the street? You see what I'm saying? That's what I don't like. So, all right.
Anything else?
That's it for now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Barandani.
Okay, any questions for this person? Okay, and then do we have anybody else? Come on up.
I have complete respect for you guys. I'm sorry. You know, it's like you know, well-meaning people can disagree. So,
Give us your name and your address.
Wally Ream, 1355 Corry Street. One thing, Denise said that we don't really know each other, but it is true. Well, let me get this the right way. Actually, you said that other people objecting are not on the map.
Well, because the map was done before all the objections came in.
So this is...
Yeah, that's Shar's.
This is us.
Okay.
This is Denman's.
Okay, all right, good.
Oh, wait, that's Stephen Paul. Oh, no, Stephen Paul is here. So that's...
Yeah.
So anyway, there are other people on the map who have, I know, have objected. I guess the main thing, a couple of things. I would ask you to look closely. I don't know what Shar Schiff said. She's the house directly south. Shar is 92, had a stroke a few years ago, has aphasia. She's not really able to express herself very well at all. So I think one of our neighbors went over and wrote transcribed essentially an email, which is probably very short just because of her situation. And in my own case, I think that, I mean, Mary, we have a long history of you and long-term renters. We don't have any history of I think, the village made a conscious decision to regulate these short-term rentals, and I think this is a situation where there would be, admittedly, there's some room between properties, but in a 3-house stretch, there would be 2 short-term rentals, and it just feels like a step in the wrong direction. So that's all I have to say.
Any questions? Questions? Okay, anybody else here for the public hearing? And Mr. Kashloff, I want to give you a chance to respond, if you can do it briefly, if you want to respond, okay?
I think the objections are basically, most of the people are retired or they're old. Everybody is a little bit afraid of change, but change is in us all the time. I mean, you can't get away from it, and why should we? I mean, in change there's also progress. I think people are just afraid that there are things that may happen. We're not proposing any major changes at all to the neighborhood. We're very complacent to dealing with everybody, and we've shown that for over 20 years. We lived there for 24 years. I haven't. I live in New Hampshire. But Mary and I have made 69 visits to Yellow Springs since she bought this house here. I can document every one of them. This is over 24 years. I know this town very well. I know a lot of the people in town. I am a known entity. I can vouch for my daughter. Is it legitimate for me to say that? I'm her father. Of course I'm going to vouch for her. But frankly, if she wasn't up to the task of being a responsive person, I wouldn't be supporting it. I am the trustee for the property. In fact, I'm responsible for the property as trustee. There's no issue about it. Look, I ask you to grant the variance. I don't think it's going to change the nature, the tone, the character of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mary, did you want to add anything else? No. Okay. All right. Okay, thank you. All right, so at this point, we'll call the public hearing to a close, if I didn't already do that. Did I already do that?
It's not pertinent. Is that a proper question?
There's a, if you want to answer, sure.
You don't have to answer it. Could you briefly state the advantage of Airbnb versus long-term renting?
It's complicated. One of the reasons is Mary doesn't live there anymore. She lives in Masonic retirement home.
No, the reason is that Valerie wants to use the basement apartment sometimes for herself, and that she only wants to rent it out at times that there would be lots of people coming into Yellow Springs who want
Special occasions.
Three-night housing, and there won't be enough rooms in town for these big events.
I have a follow-on question.
Well, in fact, that's what I was going to say.
So
Mary doesn't live there anymore. Valerie does.
Is there an owner of the house that will be in the house, lives in the house at all times?
No. The owner of the house is the trust. I live in New Hampshire. The nominal owner is Mrs. Sims right here. She is now living in Masonic.
Okay, is there a member of the trust, be more specific, is there a member of the trust living in the house at all times?
No.
That puts in a different category, I think.
Yes, it
Didn't-
Why do they go to 51% is where we need to be?
Yeah.
If I understand that.
The daughter Valerie is 45 years old, has traveled around the world and been responsible for a lot of things.
You can have a seat. Thank you very much. Thank you for that question, because
Yeah.
it does indicate, in our particular code, we treat properties that want to be an Airbnb where the owner lives there differently from a property that wants to be an Airbnb where the owner does not live there. Okay. And so I think we were under the impression that we were dealing with a situation where the owner lived there. And that's why that's here in front of us.
Well, it can be a non-owner, but they have to be the one that lives, that needs to be their primary residence. My understanding, I did not know that you were not in the home, and my understanding is that is Valerie's primary residence. And in light of this, she's going to have to prove that if the variance is granted, because you can rent your house out. Like, say you're a snowbird and you go in the winter for 3 months. You can do that and still be considered operator occupied. It's non-operator occupied are no longer allowed. There's a moratorium on non-operator occupied right now. And so she would have to prove that. And proof of that is through her tax returns, her identification, where she votes, documents like that. So that's just to clarify how we go about making sure they actually live there.
Got it. Okay. So, and so I understand. Is she occupying this residence?
Yeah, right now she's on vacation in California.
Okay,
but
she comes back from vacation. And does she have another residence where she lives?
Yeah, Mr. Junk. Jacobs, may I clarify that? Sure. Valerie has no home, actually. She has not since she became ill. She's been couch surfing in San Diego for over 15 years, staying in people's basements, taking care of their children, wherever she could. She has no income. She can't work. She is actually resident of California legally. That's her driver's license. That's where she votes. She also files all her legal documents there. The reason she's in California is not for vacation. She's there because she gets medical insurance, and she has tremendous medical problems that have to be attenuated. She's there to arrange for major surgery, in fact. No, she is not a resident of Ohio. She does not own the house. She's my daughter. But Mary, 2.5 years ago, offered to her, this is my house, this is my home, this is your house, this is your home. She's moving in here. She has not moved here yet. Most of her stuff is here. A great deal of her stuff is still in California, in storage. She is actually couch surfing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, it's clearly this raises a whole lot of issues, many of which we did not think we would be looking at here tonight.
Any more questions?
Pardon me? No more questions for you, that's for sure. So Denise, I want to get some sense from you. We don't want to waste people's time, but we don't want to revisit things that we don't need to revisit. What is your sense on the most proper way to proceed, given what we now know?
If I had known that,
The owner that lives there.
right, that she doesn't qualify, she doesn't qualify.
Yeah.
There's no way she's going to be able to prove that she lives here if all of her documentation is California. I don't see it happening.
Or not proved very quickly, at least.
Well, because you have to do, what, 6
That's
months
true.
to be resident?
Well, you have to change your vote.
As far as, like, to be considered that you've actually live in a place?
Driver's license.
Yeah,
That
you
I
get all
don't-
that and stuff
Yeah,
like
I have no idea. That I don't know. I don't know.
Address, and you're getting a driver's license.
As a minimum, yeah.
You are going to pay taxes, and you're a resident.
Right. But see, a variance is permanent, so for them to even grant a variance when this came to light, I don't think it's probably proper to do
Well,
it.
we're way outside our criteria
Yeah.
of what we would grant a variance for if we were going to go that direction, because usually they have to be there at least 51%. They're not even a resident.
I don't know what else we can do other than to deny this variance, because we have no power to, they can withdraw it if that's their choice, or we can deny it, but I'm not sure that there's anything else that could happen tonight. Or we can continue it.
No.
I think those are sort of the...
I agree.
Okay. And so you've heard this conversation. If you would like to withdraw the request, you're welcome to do it, or else we will decide.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I hereby withdraw it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. And
And I'm sure
Judy, do we
we'll see
need
it
anything
again.
else?
So,
Denise, do we need anything else?
No.
Okay, great. All right.
Agenda.
Well,
Yeah.
so let me go back to the agenda here.
Yeah, we don't have any,
Nothing on the schedule?
nothing on the schedule, yes, which is
Agenda
usually
plan.
how it is.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, it seems like the variances that we are getting, if this becomes a pattern, I will let council know that this 500-foot ruling is causing a lot of variance
This is the
requests.
second one I think we've had like
It's the
this.
second one we've had, yeah.
Yeah, but it's
a rule.
I mean, it's
It
a
is
rule.
what it is, yeah, it is.
And it
I
has a
know.
purpose.
I know.
And we should expect people to want to push against that and,
Yeah.
you
I
know.
wouldn't want Airbnbs of all sorts of houses.
No.
Oh, no, thank you.
Okay, so hang on just a second. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to
Is
adjourn.
there a
I will
second?
second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask,